Hi, SciCommers, and welcome to our Mentor Chat series. Today, we are joined by Garfield Kwan and Donna Song of Squidtoons. With Squidtoons, Donna and Garfield use art, specifically comics, as their medium to transform scientific knowledge into public understanding. They use a peer reviewing process in their commitment to making scientific research accessible to the public. And if you would like to see more of that, you can check out their Squidtoons comic that's specifically called All About How Squidtoons Works. The Squidtoons comic has been featured in a textbook and has even received funding from the National Science Foundation and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Garfield and Donna, the floor is yours now.
Great. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. We prepared a short PowerPoint, and then we would like to just open the floor up to talk with everyone. So, Donna, do you want to share your screen and get us started?
Sure. Let's do that. Oh, host disabled, participant screen sharing. So. All right.
You should be good now.
Okay. All right. Go back to beginning. Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. So we're Squidtoons, and we are honored to be talking about what we do. And hopefully after the end of our presentation, you kind of get a better idea of the process of scientific illustration, as well as presenting information in a way that's fun and creative. So, all right. So background, introductions. My name is Dana Song. First name is spelled Dana, but I go by Donna. And I am a research specialist with the trolley study at UC San Diego. And I got my MPH from the Herbert Wertheim School of Public Health and Human Longevity Science back in 2021. And as far as like the things I'm kind of passionate about, obviously I love drawing, I love riding my bike, and I have 2 pet birds, they're budgies, and I enjoy talking to them. And Garfield, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Garfield Kwan. I'm a postdoc at UC Davis with a background in marine biology and fish physiology. I did my undergrad and my PhD back at UC San Diego, script oceanography. Born in Hong Kong, first gen student here, English learner. And when I first arrived, I needed an English name. And one of the comics I read in Chinese back then was Garfield. So I chose my own name, Garfield, because I love comics. And lo and behold, a few years, just like a decade later, I started realizing that Garfield was like comics in general was a really good instrument and medium to dissect and translate complex information to not just across language barrier, but also across conceptual barriers, like sciences, for instance. So yeah, and a bit more about Squidtoons. We started around 2013. Donna and I met in at UC San Diego, and we started up a partnership to combine our science and our illustration skills into what's known as Squidtoons today. So yeah.
All right, so to continue on, there's gonna be 3 parts to this, and the first part, we're gonna just talk about like our artwork. And I am the main illustrator for Squidtoons. Garfield also does a fair amount of the visuals, but for me, I do most of the drawings that you see on Squidtoons. And yeah, on the right, we have a very simple comic of osprey babies. And if you didn't know, ospreys lay between 1 to 4 clutches. However, the third osprey here is shouting that they lay over 5,000 eggs. That's false, but hopefully you understood that. Okay, so to kind of like give a background of what I think of in terms of what scientific illustration does. I got this excerpt from a journal article by Elaine R.S. Hodges, and the way she conceptualizes scientific illustrators is the main role that they do is they interpret what is presented, reconstructs broken or missing parts, eliminates artifacts such as dirt, and shows layers of anatomy. No machine can replace the mind of the artist or scientist. So some people may ask, like, oh, why use scientific illustrations when you could just observe a photograph of the real life thing? Wouldn't that be good enough? Well, I say not quite. And the image to the right, it demonstrates what a scientific illustration can do that a photograph can't. So for example, in image A, this shows what a larva looks like. So this is a larva of a marine specimen, but image A shows what a larva looks like, in real life, but it's harder to make out like the individual anatomical parts, whereas part C is actually a scientific illustration of that same larva, but it's drawn in such a way that you could kind of see all of its unique anatomical parts kind of like off the bat, and it's made very obvious. So again, basically that's the value that scientific illustration brings, is that it recreates an image of a specimen in such a way that lays out information quite visibly and quite obviously, while also maintaining accuracy. So what's the art style of Squidtoons, you may ask? So I'm gonna kind of explain it using a very humble Venn diagram. So I think on one end, the art style is like very much leans into cartoon and creativity. And I think yeah, so that's like one feature of the Squidtoons art style. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, we try to kind of imitate a more like naturalist type of style, where we emphasize accuracy in terms of maybe like the color of the specimen, the proportions, as well as like main important details. And the image, the naturalist image to the right is an image taken from the NOAA fisheries. So this is, I believe, an illustration. It kind of looks like a photograph, but I think it's an illustration. And Squidtoons is kind of in the middle of that, the middle of the cartoon as well as the naturalist style. And I like to think that Squidtoons tries to capture the best of both worlds with each type of art style. Okay, so to kind of like explain a bit more about the naturalist element of our art style. So a loose definition of naturalism, it's an art style that depicts realistic subjects in a natural setting with more of an emphasis in presenting accurate information. And I would say our naturalist style is featured more in like our anatomy pieces, where we try to depict the anatomical parts as accurately as possible with correct labeling. And we also try to emulate more of that naturalist inspiration in the backgrounds. So yeah, basically whatever specimen we're presenting on, we try to emulate its natural environment and try to kind of give you a preview of what's natural habitat may look like. And on the flip side, we got more of the cartoon style. So just to kind of briefly define what cartoon is, it's loosely defined as like a simple drawing that shows the features of a subject in a humorously exaggerated way. And I would say that's kind of the more obvious characteristics of Squidtoons, is that we try to be kind of more cartoony, more silly. And I like to put a lot of care in giving the specimen a bit more of an expressive feel, particularly with the eyes. So here are some of our eyes that we've drawn. And I think with the eyes, it does a lot of heavy lifting with like instilling more emotions and feelings into the subject matter. And I think that's ultimately really the power of cartoons. They have a way of like bringing out kind of this like primal feeling and, emotions, and, it kind of taps into your inner child. And I think that's great. I think that's really powerful. And of course, the art style and the way we present the story and the narrative, it also leans into more of the cartoony, creative aspects of our art style. Okay. And then here's a side-by-side comparison of a market squid. So on the left, we have a photograph of the market squid. On the right is one of our anatomy pieces of the same market squid. So again, I would say the photograph, it shows what a market squid looks like in real life. However, it doesn't quite display everything. So for example, you don't quite see how many tentacles it has, nor can you really tell like how many arms, it has and where its like beak, where its siphon is located. But for what we do, our anatomy drawings, it really aims to fill in those gaps of information by clearly presenting all of the main anatomical parts with clear labeling. And yeah, I think, again, our style leans more heavily towards cartoon, but we also put a lot of care into making sure that the color, the proportions, and the environment are more or less accurately represented. And here we decided to lean into more of that creative liberty of giving our squid a mustache prop just for the extra giggles. But again, not quite accurate. They don't actually do that, but for giggles. Okay. So moving on, here's where we're going to kind of describe more of the methodology of how we make the art. And I call it the Squidtoons arting and farting methodology. Okay, so step one, the first part is to just do the basic research and also look for reliable reference photos. So what I'd like to do is I favor the, vetted sources like .gov, .edu sources. And this is kind of where I first start to source reference photos. And then to, basically continue, I do a lot of deep diving into finding images from Google Images. So obviously I can't go dive into the ocean and look for the specimen. So I have to do what's practical, which is, go heavily into Google Images, just make sure that the images you find are from reliable sources. And if you want a more dynamic study of the animal, look into YouTube, find videos of the specimen that you're trying to draw. And if you want extra credit, is like go to an aquarium, see if the specimen is there, and just, observe what it looks like in a more dynamic setting. And for me, when I pull reference photos, I make sure to look at multiple, not just one, because again, we see, as mentioned, photographs are limited in terms of what they feature just from that one image. So you want to make sure you have a collection of images to get a very broad, diverse understanding of the specimen you're trying to draw. Okay. So the next part, step 1.1, you got to sketch it out. So the first thing I do is I think I just do the typical sketching style on my Procreate app, which is my iPad, where I can just draw it out as you would like pen and paper style. And this is where I do most of the brainstorming as well as the note taking. This is where I figure out how to do the composition. And I use this space to, again, like really envision the overall feeling of the piece that I want to give out, and also figure out the main essence of what I'm trying to convey. And yeah, this is also where I do like very rough sketch of where I want to label, what sort of anatomical parts I want to emphasize, etc. And then on the right image is a screenshot of a basic simple rendering done on Adobe Illustrator. Again, this is done so that I could get a better feel of how to work out the proportions as well as the layout on Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Illustrator is where we do most of, pretty much most of all of our artwork. It's really flexible. It's vector-based, so you could really use it for many things like printing. And yeah, Adobe Illustrator is where we create most of our work. Okay. All right, so step 2. So here's the meme inspiration, the inspiration behind this. I don't know if y'all have seen this meme where it's basically a tutorial on how to draw an owl. So step 1, you draw some circles, and then step 2, you draw the rest of the bleeping owl. And that's kind of what it kind of feels like with the process is like, I think I can't really, define exactly there's no like set structured concrete step. I think the art making process is really like fluid, dynamic. It requires a lot of revisions, a lot of stepping back from my work and critiquing what needs to be done, going back in and making adjustments. And this is just one of several screenshots that I take as I'm making a anatomy piece. So yeah, basically I do this because it helps kind of critique my own work. So keeping track of my process, it helps me organize my thoughts and makes it easier to kind of pick up where I left off. And I also try to take notes with each screenshot to kind of advise myself like, oh, what needs to be changed? What sort of adjustments I want to make? And yeah, so basically you see at the very beginning starts out with a kind of a very rough rendition of a white sturgeon. And then the image at the bottom right corner is basically its completed form. And before I used to, just dive straight into Adobe Illustrator and just boom, like just make it straight on there. But then I realized when you get rid of the planning process, when you don't have a planning process, it makes the whole thing a lot harder. It also makes the whole thing take longer. And yeah, I would say like, you see what the work done on Adobe Illustrator, but I think most of the quality is built up through the planning process. So I really emphasize that planning is really important before you dive into making the actual final draft. All right, so the rest of the process after I draw the main illustration, I typically hand it off to Garfield, and there he kind of takes care of like the text and the labeling. After all that is added, we then send it to an expert or a scientist, and that's very knowledgeable in the subject matter. They then look at it, they provide their comments, they provide critiques on what to change. We get it back, we do the revisions, we send it back, and we just keep this process going until we get the final product that is that has been looked at and checked for accuracy. So yeah, on the right is an infographic done by us that also illustrates and explains the scientific process that we follow to make sure that our pieces are scientifically accurate. Okay, so after all that's done, once it's all looking good, we publish our final product on squidtoons.com. Go ahead and check it out. And after that, you take a break, make sure to, wind down and make sure to hydrate, drink water. It's very important. But yeah, basically that is start to finish what the process of making art on Squidtoons looks like. And yeah, thanks for listening. I'll go ahead and pass it off to Garfield, and he will go ahead and explain more of the science.
Sounds good. Donna, I think there's a question for you in the chat, so see if you can answer that too. So as you heard from Donna, the next part here is going to be more focused on the science side. And as a scientist, I often ask myself, what's science about the communication aspect of it? Like, for instance, if you think about if Newton discovered gravity but did nothing about it, what would have happened? Communication in its form, it's necessary and embedded into the sciences. And the reason we write these technical papers that no one ever reads is because we want to hold on to the knowledge and pass it on to the next person in its purest form possible. But most of the public don't care about like the very, very nitty-gritty details. They care about the application of it. And that's where the communication aspect is so important, to distill the idea from its purest technical jargony form into something that everyone would be able to digest and be approached by. So that's exactly what we have done with Squidtoons over the years. Over the past 11 years now, we've turned we've created about 60 different pieces, whether it's comics, infographics, or illustrations, just to convey concepts. And all of these, as you can see in the comic that Tyler posted earlier, all of these have been peer reviewed by scientific experts in the field. And if whenever possible, we also cite the primary sources as well. And you can find our work on online comics featured in textbooks, published as a book that is currently sold out, and we're trying to find a new publisher to work with, or displayed at even aquariums. There's a Seymour Marine Discovery Center at UC Santa Cruz, as well as in Emory University in Georgia. So one of the questions I often get is why comics? Besides the fact that I have personally benefited from comics when I was learning a new language, I also discovered that comics are essential to disarm people. In fact, in the picture here, in the back left here, senators have in the past trashed science, and they themselves have used comics as a ways to convey how it has trashed, how some of the funded work by NSF was not very useful and that it was wasteful. And one of the studies they trashed was a study about shrimps on treadmills. It takes 10 seconds to trash a study. You can just say, humans need treadmills. Why are you putting them on shrimp? Like, ha ha ha, this is wasteful. But what they didn't realize was that this is basically a non-lethal method to look at the energy consumption and metabolic rate and all these other parameters of a shrimp physiologically without killing the fish and in a very reproducible manner. It takes about a minute or two to explain why it's relevant. It takes less than 10 seconds to trash it. So this is one reason why science on its own is not enough. We need to communicate, and we're constantly fighting for attention. We have TikTok and Snapchat, Instagram, back in the day, Twitter, currently X, don't even know what that means. It's becoming harder to learn new things, and our attention span is collectively being withered away. And the most ironic part of it all is that we actually have more power in our pocket than at any point in history. We have the capacity to pull up a science article, but we instead choose it, myself included, to look at cute cat videos. So comic is one way to start drawing people back into these things. It combines the visual and the written language. One of the most powerful part of it is the visual. So it draws you in. And then without even the text, you can kind of convey from these three panels what message, what short story, what concept is being conveyed here. And I personally have found this to be useful for when I started learning a new language. And then later on realized it was very useful to communicate it with my parents who were also non-native speakers. And now I'm using it to convey science, which is the technical jargony language, to the general public. And people have been very responsive to this kind of format. But it's not without great obstacles. Anyone can today put up something and call it science communication. But this is leading to a lot of misinformation and a lot of unintentional ways of misleading, and albeit intentional sometimes, because we're processing information so fast, we take things at face value. So I want to use this as a good example of what I mean. I just looked up, I basically Google searched shark infographic, and this is one of the first things that came up. And what you will notice that silhouette at the top is not a shark, it's a tuna. The things that they talk about, like great whites have blue eyes, you look at it, it doesn't seem like it's very blue. It's not very, and also the relevance there, like, is that necessary? 25 years average lifespan. You look on you look on Google, like just immediately you're getting other sources telling you that's not true. 40 to 70 years and whatnot. So this just gives you an example of just how and the sources, like, it's not very well done. and that if performed incorrectly, this kind of work can have damage on not just like, well, for instance, like if this was not on great white sharks but on ocean acidification, it can help. It can do more harm than help in many ways. And this is actually, unfortunately, also published. This particular infographic was early on, albeit, but published by government agencies as well. And this goes to show that no one is immune to the challenges of communications, especially when using visual elements. And as an ocean acidification researcher myself, these are some of the issues that I take in regards to this particular infographic. And the first thing is the red color is meant to elicit alarm, and the green is meant to elicit normal condition. And that is it is actually a good useful tool when used when applied correctly. But in this case, the study itself, which is not cited here, the study itself was actually not quite robustly conducted. First of all, we'll go into the not technical true bottom part first. First of all, some calcification rate actually increases in ocean acidification conditions. Ocean acidification is the absorption of CO2 from the atmosphere into the water, and then it makes the water a little bit more acidic over time. And some animals have learned to live with it or even excel in it. But in this particular example, the drawing that the illustration they had depicts that this shell of the pteropod is going to be dissolved over time. But what they didn't tell you is that the pteropod shell was a shell. It wasn't, there's no organism in there. When it's alive, it's a totally different story. When it's a shell, yes, it dissolves over time. When it's alive, they're able to help repair it. The damage is not as dramatic as what the visual is trying to tell you. So this goes to show that the truth can be more complex than what the infographic conveys, and that this is the reason why we spend so much time over and over again working with different experts to make sure all of our facts are correct and well depicted. So in summary, illustrations are powerful tools, but communicating science should be held to the standards of science, because after all, you're calling yourself a science communicator. And this goes for both the text and the visual. And this goes to the last part of our talk. I know we're wrapping into a 30-minute mark here. The funding aspect. One of the hardest and most difficult parts about science communication is that it's often not recognized and provided funding for. I have found some success in finding funding in the EPA and the NSF world and in the broader impact component. So when a researcher wants to do a study and they put together a grant, that is the optimal time to like, hey, do you want us to make a comic about this particular topic? Hey, do you want us to do some work like creating a sandbox where you can like take the data and show the public, let them play and see in real time how rising water temperature and sea level will impact your particular community. And those are, you know, those are often like not very much. Like to us, it covers maybe like a month or two of work, but to them, it's like a drop in the bucket. They're tossing $1 million, $2 million grants in, 10K is nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. But it also creates a really powerful tool for, like, there's incentives to the researchers to include this because it's a very compelling way to illustrate and amplify the message and the research that you're creating. So this creates a very symbiotic relationship. And if you're interested in doing science communication, whether it's in visuals or in other formats, like in written formats and more in blogs, in articles meant for the general public, talk to researchers around you. See if you can create a collaboration and build up rapport with them and embed it as part of the broader impact component of their grants. We use Illustrator. Donna mentioned that earlier. And part of that reason is because we can then manipulate the drawings that we made on the comic and turn it into like a poster or turn it into learning material, into a book form, or blow it up into a giant signage that's tailored to the general public. That's exactly what happened here with the EPA grant and our Don't Harass the Seagrass comic. It got turned into all three of these things and posted around different parts of Jersey. But there is a one key component institutions like universities are not very good at paying people. They're not very flexible, especially when they're within the same institution. If you're a graduate student or a postdoc, it's really hard to also pay you on top of that for all the other science communication work you do. But it's a lot easier to pay someone outside an institution. So this is something to think about when you're writing, embedding this into other people's application. Are you at the same institution? Maybe it's better to put the money for someone else outside the institution, or collaborate with us, and vice versa. We can try to find a way to, like, hey, we can apply for this and send money to you this way as well. I like to often joke academia is it's a lot about like learning how to use and funnel money around and play with that flexibility built into the rules. And the last part is just embed into your own personal fellowships. If you're applying for future grad student or postdoc funding, you can embed it into your own broader impact. So this is the non-exhaustive list of some of the places that you can apply for funding. I want to highlight, like, most of these I already highlighted, but one of them is the California Sea Grant, or just Sea Grant in general. They have a whale tail, which is science communication focused funding. So that's all I prepared. Thank you for your attention, and happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you both. I will open the floor for SciCommers who have questions, because we all know that I have questions already, and I will talk. So I want to give everyone here a chance. You can just unmute yourself and say it if you want to say it out loud.
Hi, I had a question. Thanks, Garfield and Dana. That was really great. As somebody who does not have any drawing talent, and like you said, budgets are sometimes limited to reach out to professionals like yourselves. Are there any, especially thinking about the new Gen AI kind of tools out there, is there anything that you've played with, or any resources that you've gone to, even like there are other, like a BioRender often has like packages of kind of icons and things. Are there any resources you can maybe recommend, or that you've found to be high quality or useful for somebody who's not a good illustrator to try and create some of these informative illustrations?
I mean, I'll start off and then Donna, sorry, chime in.
You go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the first point is it doesn't have to be good. XKCD is a really well-known comic, much bigger than us, and they use things just like stick figures, and it conveys information very powerfully. And in fact, you can even argue that illustrations can be so visually appealing that it distracts you from the message you're trying to send. So don't necessarily say, hey, I don't have artistic skill. No, you do. It's just convey it in your manner, convey it the way that you think would be good. And the other component is, yes, resources. If you do want visuals, like for example, for like graphical abstracts or presentations, you want that kind of visual. BioRender is good. Note that they often will charge you for a higher, like for the premium version, in order to export it at a quality that you can export and print. So that's a word of caution there. So that's the first spot. And then AI drawings and AI rendering, they are becoming, like, it makes it so that there are more resources for you to create these and generate these illustrations images. But on the other hand, it's a lot harder to make those correct. For example, if you type in a sturgeon or a rockfish, you don't always get the AI drawing you a rockfish. It might be a bass. I've done this before. Like, it might come out of a totally different species, and you have like other types of prompts that you have. Like, how do you provide a prompt to the AI and then having to do the validations and the verification yourself? Donna, do you want to add more to that question?
Yeah, I think Garfield hit basically all the points. I think one thing to add is that I do have drawing skills. However, I lack the scientific skills. So, even though you have the drawing skills or lack of, you will always need some partnership. This is a project that can't just be done by yourself. So, and that's kind of like how it started, is like I was the the drawer, and then Garfield's the scientist, and now Garfield kind of does more of the drawing, and I do a little bit more of the research, and like the skills overlap. But basically, even though you say like, oh, I don't have the art skills, it's never too late to start. You could always do the stick figures first, and just work very slowly up to, you know, the thing you envision. So I know for a lot of people that claim they don't have artistic skills, it's certainly very intimidating to start doing art. But yeah, art is very much one of those things that anyone could start at any age and just develop the muscle memory to, it's really just practice, and yeah, there's resources out there. However, don't underestimate your own skills. You're welcome.
Donna,
Oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
All right.
Like,
I was wondering how it is you find out who's writing a grant. Do you have a method of doing that? How do you get new clients?
Yeah, so I'm an active researcher myself. So I'm personally writing grants, and staying active in the science community helps you know who's applying for what. And often people, I actually I don't talk too much about Squidtoons. I should talk about it more, but oftentimes Squidtoons started off as a de-stressor for me. So this was me trying to, like, at the end of a long day of writing, I'd rather spend time drawing. But yeah, staying active in the field is and talking to different people is one way to know who's applying for grants, and then finding people that are like interested in using this for their work. Often you'll be more surprised than often than not, people are looking for new ways to communicate their work. So this is when you tell them about, like, hey, I'm doing this thing, like, would you be interested in, like, maybe considering working together or having us as part of the broader impact in the future. Those are ways that you can make those happen. But of course, you don't just start a new conversation. Like, don't go like cold emailing people like, hey, I'm doing this. Put me on your grant. Like, you got to start off by building relationship and building rapport with people. So start off with the researchers and professors around you. Talk about, like, ask them, like, how are they currently communicating their work? Is there a broader impact component that might have some flexibility in trying something new? So those would be ways to start inserting yourself and help to think about what they do and offering a service that can help expand and amplify their research. Does that answer your question, Diane?
Yeah, it gives me a start. Thank you.
Awesome.
And Diane, I've seen a handful, more than a handful, a couple of handfuls, a lot of handfuls of people who post their, like, scientific illustrations on social media, especially like on Twitter or X or whichever letter it would like to be this week. I've heard on the SciComm streets that LinkedIn is starting to become a thing. And so I think, like, letting people find you is also very valuable. Of if you have illustrations that you have done or part of your portfolio, like, making sure people know that that is a skill set that you do have, rather than like Garfield said, like, cold emailing people and saying, I heard you have a grant, would you like a picture?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And yeah, LinkedIn is trying to go in the direction that Facebook was at, but at a more professional level. They're even embedding games into it now. But yeah, to Tyler's point, yeah, like, you have to start sharing your talent and exposing yourself to the world and letting people find you as well. The reason that Tyler found us is because UC Davis wrote something about us, and then NPR wrote something about us because UC Davis wrote something about us. So it's being comfortable with, like, pitching yourself. Oftentimes I shouldn't say we, but I personally struggle with understanding how valuable the work that we do is. I tend to shy away from it, but we have to be more conscious about that. We have to advocate for ourselves.
And if that's something that would interest you guys, Psychomers, we could do a mentor chat on sort of pitching yourself. Because I know for myself, when someone else says that I can be, that it's not annoying for me to put myself out there, I believe them a lot more than I believe myself telling myself that I'm not annoying, because I'm a liar. Who knows what I'm saying? Um, I do have a question for both of you, Garfield and Donna. When you are sort of, let me see, how do you choose like what aspect of a topic to focus in on for a comic?
Garfield, do you have a idea? Let me
I mean,
digest this
the
question.
easy response is if it's funded, it goes to the top of the list. If it's part of our deliverables, it goes to the top of our list. And then there are days when like Donna and I are just like goofing around and came up with an idea and spawns the comic that way. Um, there's even an instance when someone corrected us on Facebook in the comments saying that there's an error that we didn't catch. It was the difference between the term poisonous and venomous. Easy to get wrong. I thanked him, and then we made a whole new comic on the difference between poisonous and venomous based on that conversation. So those are ways that we kind of come up with things. And I think um, as just being naturally curious will lead you to places that like to learn new things, and then take that thing that you just learned and put into Google image search and see if there's actually something that's already done on it. Oftentimes, what you just learned hasn't been created. Like, don't do Great White Shark infographics, please. That's been done too many times. But do something like more unique, something less like the sciences is full of unique, interesting questions, and it's just basically unlimited ideas, and we have too many ideas to illustrate and draw and communicate at any given
Mhm. Yeah, and I think like Garfield said, we're limited to the topic based off of our own time and resources. So I think the tendency is to go for what's the funded projects first. But for me personally, I love drawing animals. That's my favorite topic matter. So if I could go and make an anatomy piece for every single species in the world, I definitely would. But in the end, it's kind of dependent on how much time and energy you have for this.
Do you have any recommendations for resources to learn more about like layout, like comic layout, and like how to use that in terms of telling a story? Like I'm thinking about there are a couple books by like Scott McCloud on like comic book creation and the use of panels and pieces like that. I don't know if you have any resources that are maybe a little more science oriented or just like a little more brief than his books or other ideas.
Mm.
I
Or even how
personally
you think about
haven't
it
been,
yourself in your work. Maybe you
yeah,
just want to share a little about that.
yeah. I guess I kind of grew up reading comics, so I kind of seen like the traditional format, the panels, and the comic pages of like DC and Marvel comics, and then the more recent, just like the long form comic, like the oatmeal. Like just being a consumer has taught me how to um, format the comics. We actually never had, at least I never had formal training in science communication or drawing or comics. Read a book here and there, but like that's pretty much it. Um, and like I think if you're looking for different ways to style it, start by just looking online at like the comic artist that captures your attention, and then look at how they place things and how they move things around. Um, those are those are my recommendations for how to start. And the other idea is, you it's also important to consider the topic you're trying to communicate. Like, for instance, an infographic might not be very good at communicating like detailed concepts. It's a very good broad overview tool, whereas a comic can help guide people's attention a lot more readily than an infographic that lets you loose on the entire thing. So thinking about the medium, the story, and then using the proper medium on it is just something that we've kind of gained over time and learned over time. It's just, and they'll come naturally too once you start trying to force it or frame it, and you will find yourself asking these questions as well. You can always reach out to us though if you're curious or you want a second opinion.
Question. So I have another question. Like, about how long does it take from you getting an idea to having a published comic?
I think it varies. Um, yeah, I guess the simple answer is it could, yeah, so we're both like, we're both working on top of doing this on the side. So I think it could range from like being able to push out a completed piece in maybe like a month, but sometimes it could range between like, starting and then finishing like 6 months later. It just depends on what we're focusing on. Like a anatomy poster, for example, if I were to just kind of continue working on it straight through, it should finish, it should be published and done in a month. However, there's various things that influence how much time it takes. So like I complete a piece, but then I have to submit it to get it reviews, and then that takes some undetermined amount of time and this and that. And I think for now, the approach we take is a bit more flexible in terms of what we're able to output at the moment. So yeah, as much as I think we want to be, churning out a million pieces every year, I think we also try to be kind of realistic about, how much time we have and how quickly, things will just naturally move forward. Anyways, Garfield, if you want to include more.
No, I think you hit on the point. It's just this is kind of like our side hustle or side job, hobby, labor of love. So it really depends on our other like priorities in life, like, and the work schedule we have going on.
Mm-hmm.
But the ultimate goal is I'm trying to be a professor, and yeah, if I am able to lead a lab and write grants and fund students and also communicators to do this kind of work, I think it'll be a much more sustainable path for everyone involved. And they would like, and it's a way to attribute and recognize the science communication as part of the academic structure.
Yeah. And I think the goal is to, work quicker and become more efficient. But yeah, for now, we just do things at our own time.
And I noticed on the Squidtoons website that you guys have a larger team outside of just you two. Have you always had sort of a team? I know it says you have an editor-in-chief, another editor, additional science contributors, and even a small social media team. Has that always been the case, or was that spurred on by making Squidtoons more sustainable?
It's that was back in our grad school days. We haven't been able to keep up with everything there. There's definitely people that contributed, and they still contribute here and there as an editor or contribute work, but most of the time it's just Donna and I these days. We are trying to expand, and but we don't feel right doing so when we don't have funding to support people. So we're we intentionally shrunk, like we intentionally choose not to have unpaid intern, and that has also slowed our progress. And but yes, we are like, one of the things that we want to do is expand our team in the future to have more of a social media presence, to have more contributors, and that just requires, for me personally, my game plan is to like become a professor, so then I can start funding these projects and creating these positions so that people like Donna and other people outside of the university can get paid to do. But in grad school, it was kind of like a hobby, so everyone contributed when they felt like it. It was a good way to do it. But a lot of us have since moved on to more full-time positions, so it has been a little less feasible. But if you're interested, keep us updated. If you want to join this team and help us in the near future, who knows? Maybe we'll have something available that'll make this more applicable for everyone.
Yeah, definitely a labor of love. Yeah.
Like, we can ask that for ourselves. I just don't feel comfortable asking other people to do it unless that's truly what they want.
Yeah. We allow collaborators to like come and go, depending on how they feel. And it's like, if you're naturally passionate about this, then I imagine the working in this sort of thing will come easily. So, yeah, we don't want to force people to churn out pieces. I think that ruins the art making process. And that's not the point, it's we just want to like work on a sustainable system, and just collaborators can come and go as they please. And yeah, the point is, it's like we all kind of get something positive out of this, but we also don't want to be pushing people to be like, art making machines and stuff.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Donna and Garfield, for your time, for being here. So my question is, since you have started in the field of visual science communication and cartoons, how has the field changed? How do you view the current state of science cartoons, and where do you think it is heading?
It's a great question. I can speak from an academic side because that's where I'm currently immersed. I see science communication as expanding, and its role is constantly being emphasized. But academia moves very slowly and changes even slower. So the current system doesn't have in place a way to recognize the effort. So all of that, all of the work that's being done in science communication, most of it is going unrecognized, being done but unrecognized. But the younger scientists are very aware of this. And as they're moving up through the ranks of academia, I'm hopeful that science communication will take more and more of a dominant role and be embedded in the outreach and the teaching and the service component of different institutions. And you also start seeing more and more frequent grant funding calls tailored to science communication. The use of broader impact was the starter, but it doesn't really, it leaves the door wide open to, a range of outreach, some better than others. But when you have a science communication call, that flips the focus, like who's the best, or how can we disseminate these messages the best? How do you translate and inform other people in creative ways? So those are indicators that the field is moving towards more science communication, more effective science communication. Yeah, and one day hopefully I'll get to teach a class on it as well.
We have time for one last question, if anyone would like to take it. And I'm offering it. Okay. I'll take it. That's fine. Garfield and Donna, so do you have like a dream comic topic? Like, unlimited budget, unlimited time, the largest team you could have? And what is it?
Hmm.
Donna, you start.
Well, am I allowed to say salmon? The salmon piece? Because yeah, I think a piece that we are planning and I'm hoping to get working on soon. It's about salmon. And yeah, I think a lot of people aren't aware that salmon as a species is in quite a critical position in this world. And they are yeah, at the brink of extinction in some cases. So our upcoming piece is going to be focusing on just everything salmon, like the crisis of salmon and ways that we could help sort of mitigate that. And it involves talking about ways to get the salmon through dams. And yeah, I think that's definitely the piece that I would want to like invest a lot of time into because it's a really important topic. I think if salmon as a species collapses, it's going to have such crazy repercussions for everyone, everything, like the world. So yeah, salmon is going to be the project on salmon, and saving the salmon species is something that I would really want to put a lot of resources to.
For me, I'm actually thinking of how to use our current illustrations and transforming it into a different medium altogether. Like, I take a lot of inspiration from the oatmeal, and one of the things that I've thought about and tried and failed at is thinking about converting the work into like a board game or into a different into a hard copy book that like lets you rearrange, like it's almost like a sticker, but instead of like it's a more reusable way of doing it. Like you can pop out these little hard pieces and you can arrange it into different positions in the food web, and like more interactive ways of using things that takes people off of the screen and onto like a more interactive real life setting. So an unlimited budget, time to optimize and play with that. I think that's what I would go for. Board game and interactions, but whether it's exhibits or at aquariums or at home with friends and family. Yeah, that was a wonderful question.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for joining us. We are at time. And thank you everyone for attending this mentor chat. We are going to take a break in June, but we will be back in July. So check your emails. There will likely be a Slack message. Hopefully you haven't muted us, but if you have, I don't blame you. And I look forward to seeing the rest of you just out and about. Have a good day.
Yeah. Thank you for
Thank
having
you,
us, Tyler.
everyone.
And thank you everyone for being here.